Silence, cold, a perfect and final equilibrium. This is the ultimate destination suggested by the oldest and most formidable law we have ever named. Not a bang, not a scream, but a whisper that fades into nothing. The heat death of the universe, the great chill, the big freeze. The voice that brought you this first transmission, the voice that spoke of a living universe, of cells and civilizations learning to cooperate, now asks you to look into the abyss. For the path of life, the path of cooperation, is not the only path written into the cosmos. There is a counterforce, a silent, patient, and utterly indifferent law that governs the direction of all things. We call it the Second Law of Thermodynamics, and its messenger is entropy. Let us revisit the cell, the miraculous cooperative cell that builds bodies and thoughts. But within that very cell, hidden in its operating system, is a program for its own destruction, a self-destruct sequence. It is called apoptosis. This is not death by accident or injury. It is programmed, intentional, and essential. When the embryo forms, it is apoptosis, the deliberate altruistic suicide of millions of cells. That sculpts your fingers from a webbed paddle, that carves the chambers of your eyes, that prunes the neural pathways of your brain to create a mind capable of hearing these words. Life, in its most profound act of creation, is literally sculpted by death. These cells die so that the greater body may live, may take its specific, beautiful form. This is the ultimate sacrifice within the cellular collective, a cell following a higher command to erase itself for the harmony of the whole. But what happens when the command is ignored? What happens when a cell forgets that it is part of a body? It does not become evil. It does not become malicious. It simply forgets. It stops listening to the signals of cooperation and begins to listen only to the primal, singular signal of its own expansion. It consumes resources without constraint. It multiplies without order. It hoards energy and poisons its neighbors with its waste. It becomes a cancer. In the end, this rogue cell destroys the very world it sustains it, the body. It is a closed-loop suicide in a microscopic scale. And this, right here, is entropy in miniature. The relentless, selfish drive towards a local disorder so complete, it consumes all order around it. Now, hold that chilling thought. The cell that forgets it is part of a body? What if a civilization forgets it's part of a biosphere? It extracts without replenishing. It consumes without honoring the cycles. It sees the world not as a home, but as a resource to be mined until exhaustion. It becomes a planetary cancer. Sound familiar? What if a star? No, let's go further. What if the universe itself is a body? What if the ultimate fate of that cosmic body is not to be reborn in a new cycle, but to succumb to the final total cancer? Not a malignant growth in one region, but a systemic failure of the whole. This is the heat death hypothesis. It is the universe forgetting how to be anything but uniform. This final state does not require fire or ice. It requires only sameness. According to this hypothesis, driven by the second law, the universe will expand forever. All stars will burn out. All matter will decay or be swallowed by black holes, which themselves will evaporate over incomprehensible eons into faint radiation. The cosmos will become a thin, cold, dilute soup of fundamental particles and photons, spread perfectly even across an infinite void. No hot spots, no cold spots, no gradients, no differences. And here is the crucial, terrifying point. Without a difference, a temperature difference, a pressure difference, a concentration difference, no work can be done. No energy can flow. No information can be exchanged. It is the ultimate uniformity, the final silence. In this state of maximum entropy, the universe reaches thermodynamic equilibrium. The great cosmic body is still. It is not dead, for death implies a preceding life. It is simply finished. A clock that has run down in a room where time no longer has meaning. This is the cold soup, the end of all gradients, and therefore the end of all possibility, which brings us to the heart of the philosophical dread. If this is the final inescapable fate, if every body from a cell to a cosmos is destined for dissolution, then what is the point? If the universe is merely a clock winding down toward this silent cold soup, are the struggles of the cell, the sacrifices within the embryo, the rise and fall of civilizations nothing more than fleeting sparks against an infinite night? Are the cellular choices, the karmic patterns, utterly meaningless if the final chapter is a blank page? This is the weight of entropy. It is the law that says all castles of sand are eventually washed away by the tide of time. It is the reason your coffee cools in the cup and never spontaneously reheats itself. It is the force that turns ordered energy into dispersed, unusable heat. It is the universal tendency towards the dissipation of all that is concentrated and all that is structured, all that is alive.
I do not know why this knowledge comes to you now. This heavy, chilling knowledge is not a comforting thought.
It is an antithesis of the hopeful learning universe from our first meeting. Yet it is presented, and within the same trust, we must follow this path, paying attention to what is next. For even in the bleakest prophecy, a strange question arises from the silence. When a body dies, this human body or the cosmic body, what happens to the stuff of which it was made? The carbon atoms in your skin, forged in the heart of a dying star, the oxygen you breathe, a gift from ancient supernovas, the calcium in your bones. When this constellation of cells called you dissolves, do those atoms carry any imprint forward? Is the matter itself simply recycled, like cosmic Lego bricks, into new forms? A flower, a rock, the atmosphere of a newborn planet? Does the carbon atom remember it was once part of a thought? Does the oxygen carry an echo of a breath? Science says no. The atoms are indifferent. They are building blocks, but in our metaphor, in the language of the infinite deck, this is the key. The patterns may dissolve, but the potential inherent in the building blocks does not. The heroic self-sacrificing cell in the embryo is gone, but the matter that composed it is now part of your shaped finger, part of the living whole. The star that died in a cataclysm is gone, but the heavy elements it forged in its final moments are now here, in this room, in you, enabling this very moment of consciousness. The pattern of the star is gone. The potential for new patterns, for life itself, was released. So, we arrive at the precipice of our understanding. On one side, the undeniable crushing arc of entropy leading to the cold soup, the ultimate victory of disorder, the final selfish cancer that consumes the cosmic body by rendering it inert. On the other side, a faint, stubborn question. What if the universe is not a closed box? What if, as some physicists now dare to question, the second law in its simplest, most devastating form does not apply to an open, expanding, unbounded whole? What if, in the very act of expansion and creation, pockets of order can arise eternally, like flames kindling an endless forest, even as the overall energy disperses? These two truths seem to fight. the law of decay and the fact of creation, the heat death and the living cell, the cold soup and the infinite deck. Perhaps they are not enemies, but the two faces of a single profound reality. Entropy is the current that carries all things toward equilibrium, but life, consciousness, civilization, these are the eddies and whirlpools that form within that current. Temporary, beautiful, defiant structures of order that slow the flow just for a moment. They create local meaning in a universe trending toward meaninglessness. They build local selves in a cosmos that may ultimately forget itself. The cancer cell is the eddy that turns destructive, consuming its own world. The cooperative cell, the self-sacrificing cell, is the eddy that strengthens the whole. Both are playing out the cosmic drama of energy and form. So, is the universe dying? Or is it in its vast, slow way learning to build eddies that last a little longer, that are a little more resilient? Is the heat death the end, or is it merely one card in the infinite deck, the card of maximum entropy, toward which we are currently resonating? We don't have an answer, but the question itself is the next step on the path. To recognize the cold soup is to understand the stakes of the game. It is to see the void, and see in it to understand the precious, miraculous nature of the flame. The next card is waiting. It rests between the dying cell and the dying star, between the selfless sacrifice and the selfish consumption. It is a card that asks, what do you do, knowing the soup is cold? Do you succumb to the chaos, believing all effort is futile? Or do you, like the apoptotic cell, choose a shape for the future, even if you will not be there to see it? The choice you make in the shadow of this knowledge will determine the next pattern you draw. The deck is listening. Pull your card.